Welcome to the Escape the System channel. I'm Joe Barnes, and today I have a very special guest, an excellent author. Her name is Kat Finnerty, and she has written this book, Never Let a Good Disaster Go to Waste. I wish I could show you the paperback, but I got it on Kindle. This really surprised me and delighted me. I do quite a lot of swaps with other authors. We read each other's books and review them. And some of them are okay, some of them are pretty ordinary, but this book was outstanding. I really enjoyed it. It's a memoir of her quite incredible life and a life that needs to be read about to be truly believed because it's just so many amazing incidents. And as you'll find out from the title, Never Let a Good Disaster Go to Waste, disasters as well. And it's about how Kat handles those disasters, which makes the book so impactful and makes it what it is. And that's a lot of what I want to talk about today because Kat has quite a unique and powerful mindset. And I want to share some of that with you guys, hoping that you can benefit from that. So, Kat, I've talked quite a lot in the introduction. I think maybe it's good if you introduce yourself. Now, you do various things. Obviously, you're an author, you are a yoga teacher, you were, I don't know if you still are, aerobics or fitness teacher, a house renovator. How would you describe yourself?
Well, first and foremost, I describe myself as a master of disaster, but I'm someone who I'm dedicated to helping people. I'm on a mission. I'm on this crazy mission to help people overcome and transform suffering. But yes, I do that through various things. I teach yoga. I run yoga. I run empowering experiences, which are retreats around the world where people come and we don't just do yoga and eat amazing foods and have incredible adventures, but we also give back. So I have different projects that we work on. So I do those and I teach wellness and healing with whole foods. And really, I've just dedicated my last really 8 years to writing my book and to getting it out there. And I'm really excited that Reese Witherspoon's going to be making it into a movie.
Now that is that perhaps in the future, but that's not been confirmed as of yet, right?
No, we have to tell her first.
That's
I'm
actually
manifesting.
that's what got me because I initially came across Kat listening to the podcast before the bestseller. It's a podcast for authors, and she was on there speaking with the host of the podcast, and
Alex.
Alex. And when you said that, I it made me laugh, and I thought, really, she is her life story that incredible that Reese Witherspoon could play her. But when I read the book, I saw it. I thought absolutely this would work. Although, how would she do the younger you? I think I don't know what we might need a new
No,
actress.
Reese Witherspoon has got a production company that does movies about powerful women and empowering stories.
Ah, okay.
So she doesn't necessarily have to play me, just make the movie.
Sure, sure. And if you're listening and wondering about Kat's accent, Kat, you were originally born in Canada, Toronto, or just Canada, somewhere in Canada.
In Toronto.
In Toronto, then migrated to Australia at a later date. So we got a bit of a mix of accents coming through.
And then I was also marooned on an island for nearly 2.5 years, Vanuatu, Espiritu Santo,
Did you write about that in
which
the book, or
no,
was
I
that
didn't.
afterwards? That was after.
It was during.
Ah, okay. Oh, what better way to get the book written then? When you're
Exactly. It was really ironic, Joe, because I literally had met a man who was a publisher. He published Mel Gibson's dad's book 30 years before. And he said, "Oh, I'll help you publish your book." And I'm like, "Great." He goes, "I have a plantation on this little island in a country I'd never heard of, Vanuatu." So I flew over there to literally write the epilogue, the last chapter. And I had no idea that this country, Vanuatu, is the most natural disaster prone country in the entire world. And I was writing a book called Never Let a Good Disaster Go to Waste. Get stuck there for 2.5 years. There's literally like 60 people on the island that are expats. And I happened to meet a guy who's an author and a writer. And I showed him my book and he's like, let's start over. He ripped it up and we spent 2.5 years rewriting the book.
I want to dive into the book because there's a lot to talk about. It starts with the betrayal of your husband. You've been married for over 10 years, I think. You had three children together. And on your 40th birthday, you discover that he's having an affair with a local woman or somebody you've actually introduced to your town. Now, that's where the book starts. Then we flash back to your childhood in Canada and we go through in a linear fashion all the way to that point. But that's the sort of hook of the book is how you overcame this betrayal in only 12 hours. And anyone reading that would think, well, how the hell is that possible? That just sounds crazy. But once you've read about the life you've had and all the things you've been through, then you kind of understand. So, what I wanted to ask you was, do you get any comeback? Do people say to you, look, it's not possible to get over something as, life-changing as the betrayal of a husband or wife in such a short space of time?
Yeah, it's really interesting, Joe, the amount of people that would say to me, "Oh, well, you obviously either didn't like your husband, didn't love your husband. You couldn't have done it because you didn't grieve." And they find it astonishing. But when you read my book, as you know, at that point on my 40th birthday, I'd been through so many disasters in my life. And the night that when I found out my husband was leaving me, I literally just thought back every time I'd get angry and furious and sad and scared, and I'd think back to all of my disasters of the past, and it was like all these epiphanies came up about how I could choose to suffer and what was a good reason to suffer. And anyone, so I have my 12 Master of Disaster Principles on my website, but I challenge anyone, absolutely, to do my 12 principles and really think about them for 12 hours and tell me that they're still suffering after. Because when you change your perspective, when you flip your perspective, when you realize that hanging on to that suffering and that pain is hurting you, and not just hurting you, but hurting those people that love you, there is no reason to hang on to that pain anymore. And suffering like happiness is a choice. You can choose to suffer for 12 hours, 12 days, 12 years, or a lifetime. But I always say the length of time you choose to suffer is entirely up to you.
That's great. It's such an empowering message, but you mentioned one word there which I found interesting, grief, grieving process. And you're preaching to the converted to me because I absolutely believe in your philosophy. And I'll tell you a little bit about an experience I've had where
Mm.
I've sort of applied that in my life. But when people say to you, well, you didn't grieve, or perhaps do they ever say you're in denial, that you're not, dealing with the emotion? What is your response to that? If somebody says, well, you have to go through the grieving process, or did you subsequently go through that at a later point?
Yeah, look, those are all really good points. A lot of some people say to me, "Isn't what you're doing toxic positivity?" And to that, I say, jumbo shrimp. Is that not an oxymoron? And the idea of grieving, and when are you ever over something? Like, show me anyone who goes, "Oh, yeah, no, I'm over it." Like, where's the line drawn? And really interesting because, as I told you, I was marooned on an island called Vanuatu. And it's the most disaster prone, but it has the happiest people on the planet. And they have real structure around dealing with grief. They have a structure around death. They have a 7 day ceremony, a 100 day ceremony. So there's things around grieving where I find in the West there isn't any. It's just, you just grieve eternally until you realize time passes. And a lot of people hang on to things. And one of the biggest lessons in Buddhism, which I weave Buddhism and Stoicism throughout my book, because those were really the foundations and the reason why I overcame suffering and betrayal in 12 hours and overcome suffering all the time. It's because we can choose what's causing us to suffer. They say in Buddhism, it's like hanging onto a hot coal. It's like, this is burning me, it hurts. They say, let it go. It's like, no, I don't want to let it go. It gives you an identity. And this is the thing, I think a lot of people love to stay rooted in this sense of victimhood because it gives them an identity, it gives them a story. And I'm very much someone that says, I can either be the master of my disasters or the creator of my detonators. I am the master of them. So I choose how long I suffer. And what's the reason to hang on to that? One of the biggest reasons on the night my husband left, I had three children. They were grade 6, 7, and 8 at the time, sort of 12, 13, 14. I thought, if I refuse, if I refuse to let this go, if I carry my anger, the people I will hurt are the ones that I try to protect with my life, my children. So at that moment, I thought, you have to let it go. Let go of your pain and send nothing but love. And karma dictates anything we want in our lives, what we give, we receive. So I believe in just giving love, giving kindness, and sure, every now and then we just like go crazy and snap. And then you got to reel it back in and go, what would my future self want me to do right now? And that's the mantra I say all the time. Given that it's like this right now, like I'm stuck in this situation, what is the best way for me to think, say, and do for my present happiness, but also for my future happiness?
Yeah, I think you've answered that brilliantly, Kat. I'll just tell you a little bit about my own experience.
Mm.
Um, I wouldn't say I've faced anywhere near the disasters that you have in your life, but me and my partner, we're doing IVF at the moment, and we keep, it hasn't been very successful. We're a year into the process. We've done 3 cycles. We've had a small breakthrough now in that we've got a viable embryo, but we went through 3 transfers that didn't work, that came to nothing, and quite naively at the time thought that they were going to work. So it was quite devastating. But yet at the same time, I had this juxtaposition where everything outside of the IVF was going well in my life. My books were selling pretty well. My hypnotherapy business was going well. I play tennis, still competitively, although not professionally. That was going well. Life was really good, apart from that small thing. So well, not small thing, it was a big thing. But when it would occur, we got the bad news. I would have maybe 24 hours of feeling really down and bummed out and thinking about the worst case scenario, which is, what if we can't have kids? And it would really affect me. But then I just found myself, because, and this is why I believe in your philosophy so much, because I've trained myself over the years to be able to, not so much disaster for me, but bounce back from failure and setbacks. I've experienced so much of it that I can't stay down for too long, because I don't want to be there. I want to be positive. I want to be up. It's such a better place to be. So I found myself bouncing back from that really bad news quite, within 24 hours, 48 hours. And I'd say to myself, God, is there something wrong with me? Because I should be feeling more, shouldn't I be staying down? Isn't that the more normal thing to do? Am I in denial? But then reading your book and then hearing your explanation makes me think, no, it is the better way to be. It's more positive. So I can't stress enough to the viewers out here about, getting Kat's book and reading more in depth about that process, because it's been life changing for me. Um, so
And
yeah,
Joe, you hit the nail on the head, right? You had, and this is the problem. In the West, we're like scab pickers. We have these incredible, fortunate lives. Like, really, if anyone's watching this right now, the fact that you've got power, you've got, a computer, you have something to watch on, right there, you're in the top 10% of the richest people on the planet. We're giving these amazing lives. But in the West, we're scab pickers. We think there's this one little thing not going right in my life, and it's catastrophe, it's disaster. And I always say, be grateful for the problems you haven't got. And one of the stories I talk about in my book, which made a huge impact for me on the night of my husband's betrayal. And I say betrayal because I always say, who betrayed who first, Yes, he betrayed me. He was with someone else, but was I always kind and loving? Was I always a perfect wife? So we always have to say, when we point a finger, there's four pointing back at you.
mm,
But that night, I reflected on the fact that my grandmother, and I told the story in my book about how she survived the Holocaust. And here I am lying in my bed, and yes, my husband left, and I've got 3 kids. But come on, I've got alcohol in the fridge, I've got chocolate, I've got food, I got a comfortable bed. There's no one going to kill me. I need to put into perspective the problems I haven't got and be grateful for them. And there's three words I use all the time when things aren't going the way I hope, like with your IVF: plot twist, now pivot.
Mm.
Plot twist pivot, and just constantly plot twist pivot. Things don't have to be devastating, they don't have to be disasters, they don't have to be traumatic. They can be an interesting new experience.
Yeah, I think that's great. And it's just
Yeah.
it's added to that, it's just wanting to be positive, I think, for me. This IVF thing is really big. It is, it is a disaster for us as a couple when it doesn't work out. But I want to be positive. I don't want to stay down. I've had enough of it in my life, to be honest. I do just want to be positive. So just moving on from there, Kat, I mean, it's not just the betrayal of your husband. You have struggled with many different things, and I'll go into those a little bit more later. But there was one thing in particular I wanted to ask you about, or actually a quote from your book I wanted to read because I found it so powerful. Um, you had an MS diagnosis. Was it just after you'd had your first child? So you were your late 20s. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And have,
27 I was officially diagnosed.
27, and have struggled throughout since that, but also dealt with it in the most amazing way. And you could say recovered. I'd be interested to sort of hear an update on how you are now with that. But before we go to that, there's something I wanted to read because MS, well, probably best to hear in your words exactly how MS affects people. It can be completely life-changing for some people. So could you just give us a little bit of a breakdown into what happens when you get MS?
When I was diagnosed at the age of 27, I had my baby just born. Like you, everything was going great. I was in love and just married and so happy. I had this baby who I adored, and then they're like, don't have any more children. You're likely going to be in a wheelchair by the time you're 40. And I was like, no, that's not going to be me. That is not going to happen. I refuse to let that happen. And it started with, with MS, you literally, and I'm someone that teaches fitness, I'm someone that will, run and run and run and walk and walk and walk and lift weights. And I mean, I never stop. But MS, it attacks your brain and it stops your body working. I couldn't use my arm for months. I couldn't use my left leg for over 10 years. I couldn't lift it. I'd walk by dragging it behind me. So there was so many things with MS. You don't know. It can affect your vision. It can affect your mem. It affects everything. And with MS, it's progressive disease. They say it won't get better. There's no cure, and you know there's nothing we can do to help you. Basically, there's a lot of 40-year-olds, young people living in nursing homes with MS. It's tragic.
Yeah, it is, and I think the way you put it, things stop working is a way to sort of a short way to encapsulate it. I mean, there's a lot more to it than that, but it did. Just reading about it was just it's scary, but then also I was so impressed with your reaction to it. And I want to read something very quickly because I find this is so important. Something I've come across in my hypnotherapy work, although obviously I don't deal with people with MS, but with other issues. So I'm just going to pick up part of the book here. You've just
Mhm,
been given your diagnosis here. And this
mhm.
is what you write. Basically, it came down to a perception issue. If I gave my diagnosis and identity a story, then very quickly it would engulf me and morph into a destiny I did not want to manifest. I figured I could help shape my reality by changing my perception of it. And this in turn would change my experience of MS and eventually change me. I find that so powerful, Kat, because you mentioned the word identity. And I found throughout my work as a hypnotherapist that people conform to their identities if they give themselves an identity. At a very basic level, just look at a smoker. A
Mhm.
smoker sees themselves as a smoker, so they can change the behavior. They might stop smoking cigarettes for a month, but deep down, their identity is still that of a smoker. and they're going to conform to that eventually. They're going to start smoking again. So you have to make a change at the level of identity to really make a long-lasting change. And what I love so much about this is it seemed you never adopted the identity of an MS sufferer. Would that be accurate to say?
100%. I actually really distanced myself. I didn't go to support groups. Like I said, you asked me about the disease. I know very little. I look
Mm,
for ways to cure it, but I didn't really look too much into it, what it was, what it could do to you. I thought, I don't need to know it. I don't need to think it. I don't believe in worrying about things that I cannot control. So, and I don't want to plant any seeds. I believe in really being careful about what I allow into my mind. I believe we are who we think we are. And for moments, but that's the thing, like in our heads, we have, they say in Buddhism, 70,000 thoughts a day. And we can't stop our thoughts from coming. You can't wake up and say, I'm not going to think today.
mm,
But you can choose which thoughts you believe. And so, and this is where my meditation and my yoga and my Buddhism came in, is that meditation, it was something that when I first got there, I'm like, I can't meditate. They're like, oh, you're the one. Nobody can, no one's great at meditation. But meditation teaches you that you are the only one talking in your head, and you choose which thoughts to believe. Whatever your perception is becomes your reality. And
mhm.
I'm a real believer that our perception is a reality. And if we want to change our perception, we need to change our perspective and look at things from another way.
That's yeah, very, very powerful. And anyone who doubts or thinks that, well, this is just it's an intangible, we're just saying words, this kind of shift in your psyche doesn't really make any impact. Well, I'd say look at Kat. You were not in a wheelchair by 40. You're not in a wheelchair now. You not only that, I think that the thoughts improving your health and your body, I do believe in because I'm a big believer in the mind-body connection. But it's not just that, it's your defiance or your desire to be fit and healthy also causes you to seek out any possible form of treatment which will make you that way. Somebody who shuts themselves down and says, I'm an MS sufferer, and just doesn't believe that they're going to get any better, probably wouldn't go to the lengths that you went to get healthy again. So that was really interesting to me because you were one of the first to, I think I'm right in saying this, use stem cell treatment to help you with MS. And that made quite an incredible shift. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, really interesting, Joe, because a lot of people read my book, and especially people with MS will read my book, and they'll say, this is like a manual on what not to do. And I laugh. I'm like, really? Because there was nothing I wouldn't stop at. I was like, I will be a guinea pig. I will do whatever it takes. I did everything. And yes, I went and I sought out different ways of healing. I mentioned in the book about my mother. She died and she chose, well, she didn't choose, but my mother died on my 12th birthday of colon cancer. I was the eldest of five children. And my mom, and this is the thing too, I think if we allow ourselves to get stressed, if we don't look after ourselves, sometimes it's too late. And I believe that for my mother. She had colon cancer. She had five kids under the age of 11. She was probably too busy, didn't look after herself, was stressed to the max. And it was too late by the time they found out she had cancer. And she passed away at 37. But my point is that, we have to, in that last ditch effort, my mother looked for alternative ways to heal. We drove across Canada to a site because some psychic told her that there is a healer that was going to help her. And so from a young age, I really believed in the power of thought. Anthony Robbins was like my guru from the age of 19. So I really believed in the power of thought. I believed in alternative ways of healing. And I believed in doing whatever it takes to heal myself. I refused to remain a victim. I didn't want to hand over my health. And I don't believe we should ever hand over our health to a healthcare system because no one's going to advocate for you as well as you're going to advocate for yourself. So I think people not to be rude, but often we can be ignorant and think, oh, they'll look after me and they'll do things. It's like, no, you're responsible for you. You need to look after your health. You need to eat well. And people seem surprised when they don't eat well and they don't exercise, and then all of a sudden they get sick. It's like, but you've been creating that environment for yourself. And that's why I say healing's holistic. Yes, with MS, have I done things? Have I done lots of different drugs and stem cells, which in the book I tell a story. I nearly died in Athens as a guinea pig, but it does work. And was it perfect? No. Do they do it anymore? No, it's obsolete now, but I would do it all again.
Yeah. And that actually, but that there was one thing which made me a little bit surprised because you had that experience, you had the stem cell therapy, it produced quite a powerful and dramatic healing effect. But then you went back to Australia and you had uh, what seemed to be a rather abrasive doctor tell you, look, this hasn't worked, Kat. This is nonsense. It can't work. And yet your body was telling you something else, that it had worked. And yet I was surprised to find that you actually believed partly, well, yeah, you seem to believe what the doctor was telling you. Does that speak to the power that, Western societies place in doctors, in that we're programmed to think almost that they're gods and that their word is final, when often they make a lot of mistakes and it's not in our best interest to think that way. But I was surprised that would happen to you. So why was it that he was able to sort of put that suggestion in your mind and for you to deny what had actually gone on in your body and believe what he was saying?
Good question, Joe. Seed was planted. That's the thing. That's the power of suggestion, right? You're a hypnotherapist. The
Yeah,
power of suggestion. You plant that seed and it seems ridiculous and I'm so angry in front and maybe it would have happened anyway.
yeah,
But as you said, like I was after I had the stem cell, I was like, oh my God, I could lift my leg again. And then I went to him, my neurologist, and he was, very arrogant. And he was like, oh no, you're getting worse. Why you need to start on one of our, these drugs. And I was like,
yeah,
oh, and it did crush me a little bit. Like I was so excited. I wasn't just excited for me.
yeah,
I was excited what this meant for everybody,
yeah,
for everyone with MS. I thought this can help people. Like, let me be the canary in the gold mine in the good way to say, look, coal mine, that this will help people. And years later, he did call me and he said, hey, what was that thing you did? Because I didn't see him for so long because I was so well. So, but it's the power of the mind. He planted a seed, and after that day, I never ran again. Well, I do run again now, but he did snuff a bit of me out, and it
yeah.
it frustrates me too. I'm like, come on, Kat, you're stronger than this, but who knows?
As you say, suggestions are powerful, and it's not just suggestions, it's suggestions from authority figures. And
Yeah,
we are taught to hold, and I think the medical system does a lot of good as well. I must put that out there, but we shouldn't view these people as gods. They're humans who make mistakes all the time, and it can be dangerous to believe in what they say. But so it's understandable. I think that's what I'm
I
saying.
always say doctors, they're only practicing medicine. They're practicing.
Yeah,
It's not, there's nothing in every single person that goes into a surgery or does a drug. Nobody ever knows how you are as an individual is going to react. So, and that's why I believe in a really holistic way of healing, diet, exercise, your mind, and, if you need to take the right medication, because I was against pharmaceuticals as well for a long time. I really pushed back and, probably to my detriment, but that was part of my journey as well.
yeah, yeah. And it's there's so much to cover, Kat. I think we've only really scratched the surface, and that's why I would advise everybody, even if you listen to this interview, to get the book. And I hope it's increased your appetite to read it. But I want you to. I was going to say pick a game, but play a game, but it's really not a game because all of these things were so difficult and hard to endure and go through. I was going to say pick the disaster, but I wanted to ask you of all the different things you've been through. I didn't mention the migraines you had as a child. We only touched on you losing your mum to cancer as a 12-year-old, I think you said. We obviously spoke about the MS. We spoke about the betrayal of your husband. You mentioned being stranded on a desert island for 2 years. There were other disasters in the book as well. They don't come back to mind as I'm speaking, but I've just listed five there. Of all those disasters, which would you say was the toughest, and which taught you the biggest lesson?
By far, the toughest for me was we didn't really go into it, but I ended up having three children in 3 years, and I got very ill. I couldn't really walk, I couldn't really see, and as strong as my mind was, and as much as I knew, I sunk into a really bad depression. I'd be going to teach a Pilates class, and on the way home, I'd look at trees and think, I want to drive into that tree.
Mm,
I don't want to live anymore. And it was the lowest of the low. I just really saw my entire life falling apart. And that's when I decided that I was either going to kill myself or I needed to change. I needed to find another way. And that's when I actually found Buddhism. And that literally changed my life overnight. But that low point in my life, and I was a horrible mother at the time. I was angry. I was screaming and yelling. And that was hard, my body didn't really work, and I just saw my whole life just what is it worth, and what kind of mother am I? And I couldn't find joy or happiness in anything. I was that scab picker who of course had good things going on, but I couldn't see them. I could
mm.
only see the horror of my life.
Yeah. Okay. That was separate to the MS, wasn't it? That illness, or was it that a
The
part of it?
Well, no, I think because I'd had MS at that point when I got really bad for 5 years, my body was really bad from the MS, and the depression. I believe the depression might have been part of MS, or it might have been my situation that I was in. I was not in a great situation. And it took a lot to realize that I had a choice. And in my book, I talk about how Vegemite completely changed my life. Because it changed my perception. I realized at the time when I hated Vegemite, I could choose to love it or I could choose to hate it. And that's what Buddhism taught me. And when I learned to love Vegemite, my entire life changed. I realized I could learn to love all the things that I hated. And that was profound. I thought, wow,
Yeah,
you know,
I think we have something similar over here called Marmite. Have you heard of Marmite? I think it's
unfortunately, yeah,
I think
it's
it's
just as
similar.
bad.
So yeah.
No, I
So
love it now. It's my hangover food. No, I'm not drinking too much anymore.
as we wrap it up now, it's a good time to just let you mention where the viewers of this can, how they can get in touch with you, how they can get the book, what kind of stuff you're offering, because I don't think it's just a book. I think you mentioned retreats as well. So please just
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now and what you have to offer.
Yeah. So my website is katfinnerty.com. And my book is there. I did the audio book. It's me, 12 hours listening to me talk. That was a really cool thing to do. It's really good too. It's like I said before, it's really hard to self-promote your book and your audio because you're like, it's all about me and it's really good. So anyway, that's on there. I do retreats. So I have a retreat coming up in Vanuatu, which is paradise. They're called empowering experience retreats. So I have some in September, October. I run mom and daughter ones. I run ones for people with MS. I run just empowering experiences for people that want to come over and just have this incredible transformative experience. And yeah, and I also have a course coming up about to launch, which is how to overcome and transform suffering in 12 hours based on the 12 principles.
That's fantastic. If the courses and the retreats, and I'm sure they are as good as the book, then I would highly, highly recommend that. And I can't say enough good things about the books. I will put a link for all of those in the descriptions below. And maybe, Kat, some point in the future, we'll do another interview because we only really scratched the surface, and it'd be great to hear about your second book and all the other stuff you've been up to. So Thanks again, Kat. It's been
Absolutely.
fantastic. Speaking to you is being just as good as reading the book. So thanks for coming on our channel, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Joe. And maybe we'll do the next one in Vanuatu.
Oh wow, that would be incredible.